Merry Christmas, everybody, and happy championship week. I'm here to get you the Christmas Day slate and the Saturday slate of games, who to start, who to sit, and just kind of where I'm ranking everybody to help you get ready and make the best possible decisions for your championship and do your best to win the money. This is the week we've been waiting for all fantasy season. It's now here, so it's time to get this right, and I'm here to help you out, do the best I can. So, with that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to get right into the quarterback position. And I'm going to talk about my only must start QB win this week. Dak Prescott, 20 point per game score. He has mostly been matchup proof all season. He gets the Washington Commanders, one sorry freaking defense in week 17, which we all love to see. He's currently my QB5 on the week. I love the over under, the implied team total 50.5. Helps my case as well. Dallas is always a team who's been putting up points all year. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. Last week we saw Dak go up against the Chargers defense that has been really, really good versus the quarterback. It didn't matter. Dak Prescott did his thing. I expect him to do his thing this week with the Commanders. He has all of his weapons, of course. Dak has CD, he has George Pickens, he has Jake Ferguson. I expect them to be fully loaded and carving up the Washington defense on Christmas Day. Moving on to the French top 12. I have just two guys here, Jared Goff and Bo Nix. Just two guys. Both facing top 12 defenses. Goff is facing the number one defense versus quarterbacks, which is not ideal. But my case for Goff is quite simple. The quarterbacks I have ranked behind him are either banged up or not as good, and I trust this Lions offense in pretty much any environment. Also, Jared Goff, he gets to play in a dome. We all love when Jared Goff gets to play in his dome because he does not play very well in the cold, especially this time of year. Bo Nix is just as intriguing to me. But if I have Goff a little bit ahead of him, it's just because of the possibility that this game against Kansas City can turn into maybe a little bit of a lower scoring game. The implied T total is not very high at the moment. Yeah, so I just don't think the game for Kansas City is going to provide the opportunity that maybe the Lions game would, which could maybe be a shootout. Kansas City is starting its third string quarterback as well, and the season is lost. So I don't know exactly how much Denver is, or how much Kansas City is going to really push Denver in this game. I still think Bo Nix is a great option. He's been a great option all year long, averaging 19 points a game. I just like a couple of others slightly more. Moving on to a couple of QB2s, and I have a cluster of them. Stroud, Jordan Love, / Malik Willis, potentially Lamar if he plays, and Justin Herbert. I might be crazy, but I have Jordan Love and or Malik Willis ranked ahead of everyone here. The matchup is good, and Malik Willis has shown to fill in incredibly well with Jordan Love in the past. He has a lot of upside with his feet, and Matt LaFleur as a play caller, as a coordinator, as the head coach on this team, makes things a lot easier on the quarterback. So I love Malik Willis or Jordan Love in this game. Baltimore is the 19th ranked defense versus quarterback, so they're not very good. Lamar is here if he plays. He has been so disappointing all year long, especially the past 4, 5, 6 weeks since he got back from injury. But I just don't think you really have any better options at this point. He is my quarterback 15. I just think you ride it out if he plays. I don't think he's going to play, but he's here just in case. Who knows? Maybe he can return to form this last week. I know there's a lot of rumors coming out this past week about him not working as hard, about him and the Ravens maybe moving towards a split in the offseason, maybe them trading him. That seems crazy to me, but that's neither here nor there. The Green Bay defense as well, who he is going up against, they don't have Micah Parsons. He tore his ACL a couple of weeks back, so who knows? Maybe Lamar Jackson can have a big day if he plays. Herbert and Stroud, they face each other Saturday afternoon. Both defenses ranked second and third versus the quarterback. Not great. I envision this being a pretty low-scoring affair. Pretty much every game that the Texans are involved in is a low-scoring affair. 39.5 over-under backs this up. Herbert is easily the more desirable quarterback. I have him ranked about 6 or 7 spots higher than CJ Stroud. Houston defense has been really, really good at shutting down quarterbacks, and pretty much everyone, though, so I don't have a ton of confidence in Herbert, but I think if you've been playing him all year long, you feel good about playing him here despite the tough matchup. Stroud, the Texans offense does not put up a lot of points. I don't have a ton of confidence in him. His ceiling has really not been there. He doesn't do a lot with his legs, so I think you should just take Stroud with a grain of salt, and if you have to start him, fine, but I would rather find better options. There are better options out there, far, far better options. Guys that are not better options, these are my do not starts. Do not put them in your lineup. Please don't. Josh Johnson, Max Brosmer, Chris Oladokun, and Tyler Huntley. Excuse me if I said that wrong. I have no idea how to pronounce the third string quarterback for the Chiefs' name. But do yourself a favor. Do not start anyone here. Don't even think about it. There are far better names. Just don't even think about it. Don't worry about this at all. There's plenty of names on your waivers unless you're in an 18-team league. take that for what it is. But yeah, do not start any of these guys in this tier. So let's move on to the running back position. Moving on to running backs. Only one top tier caliber running back won this week, Jahmyr Gibbs, 22.7 points per game. Had 23 points last week and rushed the ball for only 2 yards. So he had like 10 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. Basically, a receiver playing running back similar to Devon Achane. Not much to say. We know he's a stud. Matchup proof with a potential ceiling to have like 40, 50 points in like any given week. So Jahmyr Gibbs, stud. Running back 2 for me this week, and full trust in him despite the Vikings being top 12 to 13 versus the running back position. A couple of mid to low end RB1s for me this week, Josh Jacobs and RJ Harvey. Josh Jacobs coming off a complete dud. A lot of people didn't even think he was going to be active, and honestly, it was probably better for everybody if he had sat. I think regardless, you're starting Jacobs as a mid to low end RB1, just based on how you view him at this exact moment, based on sheer volume, opportunity in this Green Bay offense. Despite whoever's playing at quarterback, I trust him. You just got to roll with him at this point. He got you here. You got to roll with him. So I wouldn't overthink it too much. RJ Harvey is an easy one to get excited about. He is my RB13 this week. Dude has crushed the last 4 weeks. And really, since J.K. Dobbins went down with injury, getting all the opportunity, all the volume, 19.2 points per game, over 20 points in 3 of the last 4 games since the week 12 bye. Kansas City ranked 7th versus wide receivers, so I get it. It's a little bit of an iffy matchup, but I love Harvey despite the tougher matchup, just based on how good he is, how talented he is, and how much opportunity he is getting in this Denver offense. RB2s, Derrick Henry, Javonte Williams, and Marion Hampton. Honestly, I love them all. It's a good week for the RB2s. Derrick Henry has easily the toughest matchup of the week. Green Bay ranks 6th best versus the position. He will likely, probably, I think, not have Lamar Jackson, which hurts. But I think it just means the Ravens will lean on him more. It just kind of, it probably evens out in the end. If they had Lamar Jackson, they probably wouldn't lean on him as much. And now that they don't, they're probably going to be giving him the ball more and they're going to be stacking the box. But I think Derrick Henry, we know how good he is to end the season, so you got to roll with him. I think he's a great mid to high end RB2 this week. Javonte Williams is the next guy here. He did not play well last week. He lost some snaps to Malik Davis and Hunter Lipke. I don't even really know who those guys are. I don't think you probably do either, but I don't think this sticks. None of them were good at all when they did touch the ball, so I don't think that is going to stick whatsoever. Williams gets a bad Washington defense that gives up the 6th most points to running backs. He went for 120 and a touchdown versus them last time, and I think he does something similar here. Time to talk about Marion Hampton. Let's get the bad news out of the way. He plays a great Houston defense. That is never a good sign, and I would usually avoid this, especially with the split we've seen with Kamani Vidal. However, Kamani Vidal has not practiced in the last 2 days. He is day-to-day with the next frame that he sustained in Week 16. Assuming he misses, I think Hampton is in line for some massive work, a big game. If he can get loose, if he can get in the end zone, I would rank him higher, but the Houston defense kind of scares me in a little. But there's plenty to get excited about just based on the talent, the opportunity, and just what we've seen in the past, especially early in the season when he started to get rolling before he sustained the injury. Let's move on to the RB3s here, and none of them are really intriguing. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Woody Marks, Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, and Chris Rodriguez. I'm going to try to not be too negative here, but I hate all these matchups, and I would try to stay away from them as much as I can. Woody Marks is going to be back. It looks like he practiced fully on Wednesday after missing Week 16 with an injury. He seems to be get banged up every week. He leaves the game. He doesn't have much of a ceiling either outside of the Tennessee game earlier in the season when we kind of saw him break out and pretty much take over that RB1 role. He draws the 4th ranked defense versus running back, so not a good matchup. Plus, he doesn't catch passes. Just a lot of negatives here. I know I'm trying not to focus too much on the negatives, but he's pretty much just a pure volume bet, and you just hope that he finds the end zone. The Texans' offense, though, does not provide a lot of opportunities to find the end zone in the first place. They rely heavily on their defense and keeping teams from scoring points and, basically scoring 17 points a week and getting away with it. So Woody Marks is here just based on volume. He's more of a floor play than anything. Aaron Jones is here. Have a bigger workload. Jordan Mason was ruled out earlier today. Once again, though, the Vikings have Max Crosby starting at quarterback. They also face a Detroit defense that ranked inside the top 5 versus running back before last week's game when Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell ran all over these guys. I don't trust it. Volume probably play kind of similar to Woody Marks with hopefully lots of checkdowns from Max Crosby, but dude, he's bad. I think he averages 0.7 points a game. He threw 4 interceptions in his first start a couple of weeks ago. So I don't trust it. You just hope Aaron Jones gets peppered with a lot of these checkdowns like I just talked about. Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know how to feel about him, but I think I'm just going to rank him here in the top 36 just based on his 72% snap share in week 16. His snaps has gone up the last 2 weeks. He's gotten a little bit healthier. He was great in the receiving game last week. These are all positives, and I think that's something we should focus on, but the Chiefs are on their third string quarterback. Gardner Minshew looks like I think he went down with a torn ACL like Patrick Mahomes did, so not good at all. The season is lost. Rasheed Rice just went on IR. Everything going downhill for the Chiefs. I view him kind of similar to Aaron Jones and Woody Marks, though. He might just get there on like a PPR scam, like kind of like I talked about with Aaron Jones, and just ton of check down. So that's just what you're hoping for. If you can avoid him in your lineup, I would. Same thing with Chris Rodriguez, who is just getting in here at my RB 35. Seems to be leading the Commanders' backfield. I don't know what that means. Once again, a third stringer is starting at quarterback in Josh Johnson. This offense is bad to begin with. Luckily, Cowboys defense sucks as well, so it could lead to some big runs or a touchdown or two. You never know. I think it's a pretty decent play considering the Cowboys defense is bad, but once again, I would not be relying on Chris Rodriguez in week 17 with the money on the line if I have to. So if you keep an eye on your lineup, I would. I don't trust it a ton. A couple of RB4s that didn't make the top 36. I just don't think there's a ton of guys here who are super intriguing. The running back position kind of gets shallow, similar to tight end. But David Montgomery, season low 90% snaps after playing less than 30% the previous 2 weeks. Not good. He got 4 touches last week. I want him nowhere near my lineup, and that hurts because I still think he's a good player, but you can blame Jahmyr Gibbs. He's really good, and the Lions seem to think so as well. Kareem Hunt is here. He's in like the 40 to 45 range. He's lost touches and snaps the past 2 weeks to Isaiah Pacheco. Kansas City seems to be going away from him with the season pretty much lost. Not interested, but he's always live to be, maybe a guy who falls in the end zone at the goal line. So if the opportunity presents itself, I don't trust it versus Denver, who is number one versus running backs as well. So just 2 negatives there that I think probably should keep him out of your lineup and nowhere near it. Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt is thrown in here, but honestly, I'm not sure why. As long as Chris Rodriguez has been healthy recently, he's been the backup. Don't start him unless you have to. He could break off a big run. He's shown it in the past, but if you had to start him, you're truly down bad, and you maybe don't deserve to win your championship anyways. So that is it for the running back position list. All right, moving on to wide receivers. My must-start wide receiver ones this week: CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Nico Collins. Pretty simple. We know how good all these guys are. I don't have to convince anyone of that. The 2 Dallas boys got the Commanders' defense. On this Sunday, they ranked 24th versus the wide receivers. They give up a ton of points. The Dallas offense scores a lot of points, 50.5 over under. This supports this narrative completely. I expect both Pickens and CeeDee Lamb to have big games. Maybe one of them has a bigger game than the other, but I think both are going to probably be close to top 12 options as they have been all year long. Amon-Ra gets a tougher matchup. He had a little bit of a dud last week, but he once again draws the number 1 team versus wide receivers in the Minnesota Vikings. They've been pretty good all year at limiting opposing wide receivers, but St. Brown is mostly matchup proof. 90 points per game pretty much supports that as well. Look for Amon-Ra, like I said, to bounce back after a down week 16. Return to his normal form despite this pretty rough matchup overall. Nico Collins draws a tough matchup. The Chargers defense ranks 5th best versus opposing wide receivers. I'm starting Nico with confidence, though. I'm not worrying too much about him. He has been the only Texans weapon to be a high producer in fantasy all year. He is their number 1 option. They're going to go to him all day long in a must-win game this week, especially if they want to keep pace with the Jaguars in the division, and maybe even possibly have a chance at the number 1 seed. So I expect him to go to Nico Collins 10 plus times in this game. Fringe top 12 guys. Just one guy this week, J-Mo. Jameson Williams, he's my wide receiver 11 this week. Really, really tough matchup versus the Vikings, like I talked about with Amon-Ra. Number 1 defense versus wide receivers. But he's played really, really well the last 7 to 8 games since the bye and since Dan Campbell has taken over play calling duties. He's been an elite producer, averaging almost 18 points per game. He had a 0 in there, so it could have been higher, and averaging 7.5 targets in that span, opposite of Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is a target hog and who we all know is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's a big play waiting to happen, and I want that upside in my lineup with the money on the line. Despite the tough matchup versus the Vikings, I do not care. If he puts up a 0, I will live with it, but Jameson Williams has been fire from, I guess, the last 7 to 8 weeks, like I talked about, so you got to trust him here. He's been consistent only this last half of the year, so I'm rolling with him. Wide receiver 2s. Moving on to wide receiver 2s this week, we got Justin Jefferson, Cortland Sutton, Lab McConkey, and Zay Flowers as pretty much back to back as my 14 through 18 wide receivers. Some I trust more than others because of the matchup or the way that they've been trending as of recently. So let's talk about that a little bit here. Justin Jefferson, one of the biggest disappointments of the year. Not really his fault. I don't blame him too much. Quarterback play has been horrendous, and now Max Brosmer is likely starting again. Not ideal, but I love the upside against a Detroit defense that is second worst for opposing wide receivers. He's got to get home. He had a pretty decent week last week. I expect him to kind of do the same. They're going to rely a lot on Justin Jefferson. I am dying on the Justin Jefferson hill in week 17 with the money on the line. You got to. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Possibly going to go down as one of the best wide receivers of all time. So I'm trusting him with full confidence this week. Cortland Sutton just trails Justin Jefferson. He has been really, really good as of late. A lot of people thinking he was going to lose the wide receiver one job, including me to Troy Franklin there for a while, but turns out no. Last 4 weeks since the bye, 18.5 points per game, 9.5 targets. Great, great run to end the year. Despite Kansas City being solid versus wide receivers, I like his chances to finish as a top 12 to 16, 17 wide receiver this week. And he has upside to even more because we know how good he is when they get in the red zone. And I just feel confident in him finishing this week very strong. It's an incredibly important game for the Broncos. Their number one seed is on the line, so I expect them to go to them. I expect the Broncos to go to him a lot this game. Lad McConkey and Zay Flowers are just trailing these two guys. I have far less confidence in them, to be honest with you. Lad is facing the Houston defense that is number 2 versus wide receivers. He's been kind of spotty this year with Quentin Johnson taking a step forward again. Aronde Gatson has had his spots this year. Keenan Allen has been really good at certain points this year and just been a little more spread out. With all the O-line injuries, it's been really, really hard for this Chargers passing offense to really thrive at its highest point. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling about La'el McConkey at this point, but I think you kind of have to start him because he's been, he's just one of the best receivers in the NFL in my opinion, or at least a top 12 to 15 wide receiver in my opinion, and he is the Chargers' number 1 guy. I just hate the matchup. Zay Flowers, likely going to have Tyler Huntley starting. You hope that Lamar Jackson starts, but it's probably going to be leaning towards Tyler Huntley this week. I just have a hard time, once again, setting him because of the targets he commands on a week-to-week basis and the upside that they possess. Even though Zay Flowers does, again, in the end zone a lot, he is a big play type of guy and a guy who commands a ton of targets. So I just think you got to trust the guys with the most talent and opportunity, and that is exactly why these guys are in the wide receiver 2 range. Okay, let's talk about some wide receiver 3s. I got a good list of 5 guys here. Terry McLaurin, his teammate Deebo Samuel, Troy Franklin, and another pair of teammates, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. Easily the best start here, Terry McLaurin. I would have him higher, but Josh Johnson, the Commanders' third stringer, is starting. Good thing, though, for him, Terry gets the worst defense in the NFL versus opposing wide receivers in the Dallas Cowboys, and I like his chances to break a couple of big plays regardless of the quarterback position. I mean, Dallas has been awful all year, giving up big plays, giving up a lot of points to wide receivers specifically, so I trust him in this spot, and I am just going to roll with Terry if I have to in a flex spot, or if I don't have any better options than him. I view Deebo and Troy Franklin pretty similarly. Deebo kind of docked because of the quarterback play, like I talked about, and Terry being back on the field. It's kind of limited its upside with Terry McLaurin back on the field, so I don't trust him as much as I did when Terry was hurt. But great matchup versus Dallas, like I talked about. But there are just definitely some cons to this situation that I don't love at all. That's why he's ranked this low. Troy Franklin finds his way in the top 36 once again. Pat Bryant is likely to miss with the concussion that he sustained last week in Week 16. This means a much bigger role, more routes for Franklin. I love the opportunity when he has been given it, and he is likely to see an increased workload, like I said, in a must-win game for Denver. I like when he's been the number 2 option in the team. It looks like he's going to be once again. He's wide receiver 33 for me on the week. The last 2 guys, I have the 2 Green Bay wide receivers back-to-back as my wide receiver 35 and my wide receiver 36. Both are kind of big play artists who have shown significant upside in the past. Sometimes it's just too random to kind of guess who's going to be the guy in the Green Bay offense who's going to have that big play, have that touchdown or 2 this week. So they have lower floors, but the ceiling could be massive for both. And if you choose right, you could be sitting with a lot of money come Week 17 at the end of championship week, and especially in the right environment. If Lamar Jackson ends up playing, it could turn into a shootout, but we have to temper our expectations because I think it's going to be Tyler Huntley. But Baltimore is 5th ranked versus opposing wide receivers, so you never know. Both of them might be able to get home despite Malik Willis playing and Jordan Love being out, and even despite Lamar Jackson missing once again. Now, I wanted to throw out some names as some wide receiver 4s who are just outside the top 36. Just some guys who, if you're desperate, if you play in deeper leagues, deeper lineups that you maybe want to throw in your lineup, who are maybe somewhat intriguing. Jordan Addison versus Detroit. isn't a bad play. He's in the like top 40 to 45 range of my rankings. Worthy's in the same range. He will step in as the wide receiver one with Rashee Rice placed on IR today. Denver's defense is tough, tough, tough. And the third stringer is at the helm, so I don't trust it as much. Worthy has not been good this year. So don't think you can play him with a ton of confidence despite all those things kind of landing into place. The quarterback's bad, and Xavier Worthy has not been very good this year. Quentin Johnston, Jaden Higgins, and Romeo Dobbs are kind of like the third-ish options on their team. You're kind of hoping for each of these guys to find the end zone. So they're just really hard to trust in the lineup. But once again, if you play in a deeper league, if you are kind of desperate, I think these are some guys who you maybe want to think about playing, especially maybe a guy like Romeo Dobbs, who we know has shown to be a multi-touchdown guy game in the past. Okay, moving on to tight ends. This will be a little short and quick this week. I'm going to be honest with you. Shallow position, no elite options this week. I have Jake Ferguson and Travis Kelsey both ranked as my top six tight ends this week. I kind of just shows how shallow the position is. My tight end five, my tight end six. Not bad options, but not great options. Jake Ferguson is easily the most intriguing. He has had big games this season where he's caught a lot of passes, caught a couple touchdowns. He had one last time versus the team he faces this week in the Commanders. He had 22 points, two touchdowns versus Washington. Clearly the third option on this team, but Dak loves his tight ends, so I think he's a pretty solid play either way. Travis Kelsey, much less intriguing because Kansas City, like I talked about, is starting a third string quarterback who I had no idea how to pronounce his name. Rashee Rice gets placed on IR, so that makes Kelsey probably the number one option, receiving option on this team. Take that for what you will, but he's more of a volume play at a position that is truly shallow and really not very good at this point in fantasy football. So let's move on to the fringe top 12 guys. It's just one, Dalton Schultz, my tight end 11. He has been actually pretty good recently. 12 and a half points in three of his last four games. He faces a top five defense versus the position. So overall, though, I like the floor play. I won't be too negative. Stroud looks his way pretty often, so you can't feel too bad with Dalton Schultz in your lineup. Tight end two. I have a trio of guys here in the slate of games. Oronde Gadsden, who looked like an ascending player before all the Chargers O-line injuries. He's easily the most interesting guy here. I hate that he draws the Texans defense, but I love the upside, and I do not mind rocking with it. He has shown some really, really incredible ceilings this year at certain points. Mark Andrews barely sinks the top 24. He is likely losing his quarterback, which makes things worse than it already was. I am avoiding this matchup like the plague. Green Bay has a good defense, ranking top 12 versus the tight end. And once again, like I said, seconds from quarterback Tyler Huntley throwing to Mark Andrews, who once again has not been very good this year, barely averaging 8 points a game. And next year, with Bowers and Hawkinson hitting the IR today, I have Josh Oliver, who is the backup tight end for Minnesota, making the top 24. That's all I need to say. He has filled in decently in the past when Hawkinson has missed time. Downside is obvious, though, Max Brosmer. Don't advise starting him. I just would stay away from it altogether. Tight end three guys, just outside the top 24. Just the four guys who are on the teams of the tight ends that are left. I will briefly touch on Evan Ingram, Luke Musgrave, Ben Sinnott, and Shane Zylstra. I think that's how you say his name. I don't see a path or vision for really any of these guys unless they just magically find the end zone. The only guy I was like really high on in the past was Luke Musgrave after Tucker Kraft went down. I thought he could get some nice opportunity, but he's done absolutely nothing with it. So yeah, not a ton of guys here that I love. Evan Ingram, pretty much been a nobody this entire year after I thought he was going to have a big role coming into this Denver offense as the starting tight end. Nothing. Ben Sinnott, the backup tight end for the Commanders. Can't really expect a lot. He's kind of splitting snaps with the other guy. I think Jake Bates in that offense. Shane Zylstra, I think he's the third string tight end on this Lions team after the second string went down with an injury on the IR. So not a ton of upside here with any of these guys. None of these guys have really intriguing matchups. So I think that is just going to end off the tight end position. I'm sorry I couldn't give you guys a ton, but once again, we'll talk about tight ends more in the tight end rankings video because, yeah, this slate of games does not have a ton of good tight ends and does not have any of the elite tight ends, especially with Brock Powers being put on IR this afternoon. Either way, though, I just hope I could help you guys out, give you guys a little bit of an inside edge on these 5 games that are being played on Christmas Day on Thursday. Merry Christmas to everybody. And on Saturday, the 2 games between Houston and the Chargers and Baltimore and Green Bay. So, yeah, I will see you guys here in a couple days because I'm going to get you guys out the wide receiver, running back, quarterback, and tight end rankings. But I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. Hope everybody's spending days with their family and all their loved ones. So I'll see you guys soon. And yeah, once again, Merry Christmas, everybody.